Bernie because they didn't need it, and he was doing a great job based on the bogus statements they got. But, you know, if the financial crisis hadn't happened, he would have gotten away with it probably for a lot longer. You know? And, you know, one of the famous things that Bernie said about Ponzi schemes was that, you know, he was a piker compared to the U.S. government. The U.S. government was running the world's biggest Ponzi scheme, and they are. And I think what all the central banks are running is giant Ponzi schemes. And like Bernie, they're just hoping they can get away with it for as long as possible. But you know what? My whole system, this whole Ponzi economy, central banking, because now we've got a problem that there's no way the central bankers can solve. If we all stop working, if we all start producing, and the central banks print money, what can we do with that money? Nothing. What good is money without stuff? So we're about to find out that there's really no magic behind these phony money magicians, that the whole thing has been an illusion, that they cannot do anything to engender prosperity, that it's been a con the whole time. And if we can completely discredit these central bankers and go back to sound money, that will be the one silver lining to the coronavirus, right? You know, that it helped, you know, get rid of central banking. I just hope that when we get rid of central banking, we don't also get rid of capitalism, that we don't, you know, that we don't end up with socialism. You know, central banking is a socialist concept. You know, a capitalist concept is free banking, private banks. Again, that's what we had before we had the Federal Reserve. We had private banks, and those banks held gold and they issued their own currency. There were currencies circulating in the United States before Federal Reserve notes were circulating. They were just liabilities in private banks, and they were all redeemable in gold because nobody would take a note that wasn't redeemable in gold. We weren't a nation full of idiots. I mean, even though hardly anybody went to school in the 19th century, the average guy in the 19th century was a lot smarter as far as education about money than all the college grads we have today that have these big loans for overpriced degrees. Americans who never even graduated grammar school were smart enough. Peter, thanks for doing this. If you have talked about this already, you must have missed it. Love the podcast question. If gold and silver take off, and will the miners follow? Look, yes, eventually the miners are going to follow if the price of gold really takes off. In fact, even if the price of gold stays where it is, right? If the mining costs stay where they are, oil being where it is, I mean, the miners are going to make a lot of money. So don't confuse the price of mining stocks with the prospects of mining companies. Because as I said earlier, the people who own mining stocks are speculators. And the mining stocks themselves are not very liquid compared to other stocks that more people are interested in. I mean, the whole market cap of all the mining stocks combined, you know, is less than your typical top Fortune 500 company. And so when you have extreme volatility, when all of a sudden a lot of people want to buy and sell at one time, you have big moves. I mean, I talked about my podcast yesterday. From Monday's low to Tuesday's close, the GDXJ, which is an index of junior miners, had a 65% rally between 2 days. And the price of gold didn't even change. It was basically the same price at the end of both days. So obviously, these companies' values are not changing by 65% overnight. It's just people want to get out and there's no buyers. And then they want to get in and there's very few sellers. And so it's a lot of volatility. But I do think, as I said earlier, that if you're looking to make 10, 20, 50 times your money, gold stocks are a way to do it. But you could also lose a lot of money if I'm wrong. But I am very bullish on these stocks. Just don't buy them on margin. You know, just buy what you can afford and invest what you can afford to lose. And then sit back. Because if I'm right, you're going to make a ton of money. You know, people who owned gold stocks in the 1970s cleaned up. You know, people who own gold stocks in the first decade of this century, they made a ton of money. I think people that own gold stocks now are going to make a tremendous goes bankrupt. Is that the United States? I'm not sure how many nuclear weapons we have. But look, I don't think the United States is going to blackmail the world by threatening to nuke them if they don't send us a bunch of consumer goods for free. You know, I mean, I think we're foolish. I don't think we're sinister. I mean, I think the people that are running the country in general are well-intentioned. I don't think they're bad people. And they're not evil people. You know, a lot of people who are Democrats or socialists, they think, you know, free market advocates, even just Republicans, are just mean and bad people because they don't believe in all these social programs. And it's not that they're mean, that they don't believe in them. They just know they're not going to work. They just understand the unintended consequences that the socialists don't understand. See, socialists think with heart, not with their head. And so I think a lot of these people are not evil people. I mean, so I don't think that they're going to, threaten to kill people or nuke people. I just think that people are making decisions that they think are good, or that they think are good politically for themselves. But, they're not necessarily, really bad, evil people. Now, some of them are. There are some evil people. There's probably more bad people in politics than there are in the general occupations. It's interesting. Like liberals always think there's bad people in business, but there's greedy business owners. Look, the people that go into politics are just as greedy. They just think they can make more money in politics than in any other occupation. So there's plenty of greed among politicians. The difference is you get a greedy person who's an entrepreneur who starts a business. His greed can't hurt you. All it can do is help you. Because if he wants to make money, he has to convince you to voluntarily transact with him. So he has to provide you with a good service that you value more than the money that you're paying for it. And he has to do it better than a competitor that you could buy from instead of him. So you don't have to worry about greedy businessmen, right? We want greedy businessmen, right? What's her name? Sanders just said in the debate, he doesn't want somebody to get rich coming up with a cure for the coronavirus. Why not? First of all, if somebody comes up with a cure for the coronavirus, don't they deserve to get rich? I think so. But if you don't want somebody to get rich curing a disease, then nobody is going to cure the disease. It's the prospect of getting rich that is why so many people will invest resources in trying to come up with a cure. If you think, well, people should cure diseases just because they're humanitarians and they want to help people. Right. That's an idealistic world, but in reality, it doesn't happen. The communist countries, communist Soviet Union, communist Cuba, right? Communist China, when it was really communist, not now, those governments didn't cure anything. All the big cures come from a capitalist that's willing to get rich. So you don't have to worry. If some scientist wants to get rich curing diseases, let him at it. Cure as many as possible, right? I want the guy that cures cancer to get stinking rich, right? Am I gonna resent the fact that the guy that cures cancer gets rich? Of course not. Right? What if we have this attitude? Nobody should get rich curing cancer. People can have a return on their investment. That's life. I don't want to live in some liberal utopian fantasy. I'm going to live in reality. But where you have to fear greed is when greedy people go into politics. Because when greedy people are in government, they can really harm you because they have the power of the government. They can take money from you at gunpoint. They can force you to do something that you don't want to do. And if you don't do it, they can put you in jail. See, a businessman, if you don't want to buy his products, there's nothing they can do about it. So they have to convince you. They have to woo you. They have to court you. See, that's why in business, the customer is always right, because the businessman knows where his bread is buttered. That's the beauty of capitalism. You have all these businessmen trying to please you. In government, there is no customer. The customer is never right. It's our way or the highway. Take it or leave it. You think you get good service from the post office? You get much better service from Federal Express because they have to earn your business. Post office couldn't give a damn whether they have your business or not. Anyway, so I started off talking about miners, and I don't know how I even segued into that discussion. Anyway, next question is smoked coconut, $20. Here is a story about gold. WF Bank closed most iconic and long rented location in San Francisco in 2019 with my safe deposit box for $50,000. Forced me to fly to reallocate to the other world, by the way. I'm not really sure. What's the WF Bank?
Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo. Oh, Wells Fargo closed and forced you to come empty out your safety deposit box? Look, I don't know, but that's why I tell people the last place you want to keep your money is in the safety deposit box of an American bank. Because if it's ever seized, that's the first place the government's going to look. And yeah, I know that some of these banks could be worried about money laundering and what's in people's safety deposit boxes. Look, don't do it. I would rather have money, let's say at the Perth Mint, stored in Australia, which I talked about earlier.